So today I'm going to go over the mind-body sport from the NCAA's new handbook that was written. Dr. Shua talked to us a little bit. I know, Brian, you weren't here, but I'm personally really fascinated with psychosocial disorders. So quick question, how many of you have ever made a psychosocial referral or had a serious situation in which an athlete had a mental issue that needed to be addressed? Yeah? Do you guys know exactly what to do, or were you on your own, or was it something where did you had to feel around for it? Were you under someone's supervision, or did you do it on your own and make the call all by yourself?
Under someone's supervision.
Yeah, that's how it has been for me too. So as clinicians now, just out of undergrad and then just out of master's, I feel like this is a good time for us to talk about kind of what we can do. So throughout the handbook, they've given a lot of different perspectives. So they have the athlete's perspective, which we're going to go through first. And then they have areas where the athletic trainer can really improve. So I just have a few notes here because there's a lot of information. So from the athlete's perspective, it's important for us to treat the person, not the injury. If they are treated as a human, then they are more likely to respond well to injury, but we all know that. It's our job to help them develop emotional intelligence. So perhaps doing an illustration on DABDA, or the five stages of grief. Sometimes it can be helpful when we're vulnerable first. So if we give our athlete some incentive, I know what you're going through, here's my example, then they're also more inclined to feel comfortable with you. And it's our job to create an emotionally safe ATR because we all have locker room talk, coaches talk, team talk, and it's our job to counteract that. And when they're in here, it's to be safe. So, and lastly, it's our job to lead others. So tell others about it and don't encourage any of the negative talk or any of the bad atmosphere for our athletes. So especially in a collegiate setting and sometimes even high school settings, we always have freshmen that come in. And so freshmen have a couple of things to get used to is that they're new. They're from a big fish in a little pond to a little fish in a big pond. And so all the adjustments there, all the adjustments academically as well as socially, that all take into consideration for psychosocial disorder. One of the cool things that I learned is that their coach is usually their parental figure, which I didn't realize. I thought maybe they go to their actual family or they would go to teammates, but their coach is usually the first one that they go to. So having a great relationship with your coach helps them have a great relationship with you because that's their parental figure. Challenges for us is, like we said in the beginning, making referrals, knowing when to refer is really difficult for us. I don't have any experience with it right now, so this is really helpful to me as well. And knowing who we can share info with and how much. Your athlete's going to dictate that as well. So if the athlete doesn't want the coach to know, you cannot tell the coach. They do sign a HIPAA release form so we can talk to other people, like clinicians, but if it comes down to their teammates, you have to let them talk. But a lot of them will be private about it. And a lot of them wear game faces at all times. So we have to make sure that we know when the signs and symptoms are coming up. Not surprisingly, the number one psychosocial disorder in collegiate setting would be, do you guys know? Anxiety and depression are right up there top, so it's really not surprising at all. As well as substance abuse, which I also learned is more men and also more in off-season, which kind of makes sense, but I thought that was pretty fascinating. They have stats on that. And then what we need to do about, you have to be aware that there's also psychosomatic illnesses, so people who have chronic pain. We forget about those people because we don't usually interact with them as much. So what can we do about specific things? So eating disorders. We all know signs and symptoms. I'm not going to go over those because we're clinicians, but what we can do is de-emphasize weight. We can educate about nutrition. We can make a welcoming environment where they can talk and discuss, and that's our job. We also need to have an emergency action plan for those kind of things and to treat every condition, especially if there's suicidal tendencies, seriously. Another thing I learned, which is really cool, is that they have Mauer's, I don't know how to pronounce it, two-factor theory. Fear is a sign language. So what happens is there's a stimulus that causes the fear, and then a noxious or an event that causes the fear, and then a noxious stimulus, which causes the avoidance. So when they avoid that noxious stimulus, it's in their mind is a reward system because they feel better. So then they're more inclined to avoid it, and they're more inclined to fear it. So it's a cycle of fear and avoidance. And a lot of times that manifests in our athletes as, in instance for basketball, shooting a free throw can often be an event, and the noxious stimulus is fearing that they'll miss it, and then they'll avoid practicing. And so it's our job to break that cycle. Sleep disorders, again, it's kind of like eating disorders. You know, you gotta watch for the signs and symptoms that we know of, and also make sure that you educate your athletes, because a lot of them are just like, oh, I had pulled an all-nighter, but I'm fine. But we also know how that affects performance. Special considerations, the last thing I'll talk about, because I found this to be really, really cool, is that even though teams are often a whole, harassment and discrimination, especially in minority groups, are actually more common than we think. And a lot of the times this won't manifest physically. This will be just they're going home and they're not feeling accepted. And a lot of the times that can be translated to team practices as well as injury and as well as their attitude to you. So knowing your minority students, knowing the environment they go home to, and knowing the environment of the team is all huge factors that we can do to support them. And then lastly, the LGBTQ environment. A lot of us have LGBTQ athletes, and it's widely accepted in society. However, in sports, it's not as widely accepted. There's been studies shown that although in society it's accepted, coaches and staff members often still discriminate. And it's maybe just how they were raised, how we saw things, and now everything's changing. So it's just a common thing that occurs. We need to make sure that we show our neutrality to it, or our support for it, and our support for their decisions. And that includes using the pronouns that they want to be known as, and knowing how they identify themselves. Finally, with that, just food for thought. For transgender athletes, if a male transitions into a female, they suppress testosterone. I'm sorry, I'm getting confused. And they have to be suppressed for a whole year before they can even play on a women's team, which I didn't know. And then if it's female to male, then they can take testosterone, but they have to have medical clearance for it, and they can immediately play on a men's team, but they can't ever play on a women's team ever again, or at least while they're taking it. So anyway, food for thought. I thought this was really helpful. I hope you guys did too, because I don't think anybody's ever read all 120 pages, but I loved it. It was really cool. So, do you have any questions? No? Cool. Well, thanks, guys. I hope you guys learned something too.
Thank you.